My name is Charles Crompton. I'm the business owner and CEO of two companies. One is an Airbnb arbitrage company with 50 listings across Canada, and the other is an academy where we help other people do it. And so on this episode on the Prosperity Show, you're going to hear about how we did it, why we did it, and how we can help you do it.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we have a truly inspiring guest who embodies the spirit of taking big risks and even bigger rewards. Now, Charles, how are you doing, my man?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to dive into what you've been up to in the last 2.5 years. But as you know, the world has just become what it is. So have you got a bit of a disclaimer before we jump into the exciting beats that we're going to be talking about today?
Sure. I mean, we'll be talking about some, wealth creation and some financial stuff, some real estate stuff. So just want to say, that this is not official financial advice. I'm just sharing my story, how we did it, and how we're helping other people today. But this is not financial advice.
Absolutely. Now that we've got the legalese out of the way, let's have some fun. For those that are tuning in, thank you so much. And I'm hoping you're subscribed to the Online Prosperity Show because you don't want to miss what we're about to explore today. And, well, like I said, we are diving headfirst into the wild world of Airbnb. And for most of us, not a lot of people get past property number one or even get the first property. But if you now end up having 50 listings all across North America, damn, that is a feat to be remarked upon. And that's who our guest is today. Okay, so imagine this, leaving behind a cushy corporate job just to dive headfirst into the wild world of Airbnb, not as a renter, but as a owner or as a host. And while you're juggling all the mortgage and a 1-year-old, it sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what Charles Crompton and his wife did. And fast forward 2.5 years later, they've got a good story to tell on the Online Prosperity Show. They've actually built a thriving business with 50 listings across North America while they're enjoying the freedom they only dreamed of a day like this. I know everybody, just wants to work, go to, university, work, get married and things of that nature. But we all want freedom. We all want health for our loved ones. And we all want to have a happier existence. So Charles is here to share his journey from corporate climber to a freedom-seeking entrepreneur. And trust me, I've been talking to him behind the scenes. You're going to want to hear every single word of it. So grab a seat, get comfortable, and prepare to be inspired by somebody who proves that sometimes the craziest ideas can lead to the most incredible outcomes. Now, Charles, I could go on and talk about things that I know nothing about. Tell us a little bit about your journey and your story so far, because I myself can't wait.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the introduction. That's it's crazy to even hear some of our stories said back to me sometimes. So much has changed in the last few years. I get that, imposter syndrome quite often. I'll tell you that. So, I'll start. Hey, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, my wife and I met. We met at our corporate job. We both worked at the same firm for 12 years, right out of school, an investment firm called Edward Jones, great company. And you know what? My wife and I were always working towards our dream life. We're both ambitious goal setters. We had a clear vision for what we wanted out of life. And we knew, in short, that freedom was a main part of that, that in order to live your dream life, that didn't include living a 9 to 5, that wasn't going to allow for us to spend the time where we wanted to spend it, on health, on family, on experience. And so the mission was to retire early. So I'd say we're on a traditional track of, get by in the house and, working the 9 to 5, but we certainly did a good job of working towards early retirement. And so, year after year, we spent living beneath our means, while climbing the corporate ladder to increase our income. We invested heavily. That is my background, obviously working at an investment firm. And so, everything was running smoothly, I would say. Prosper. We had, created some wealth for ourselves through investing in real estate and stocks, rising our incomes year after year. And things were moving smoothly, and then my wife got pregnant, so we were pumped. We're about to have a baby girl, and this is early 2020, so this is right before COVID, that word. And I all of a sudden, this was before COVID, so this was maybe January, like pretty much right before it happened. My wife's due in May of that year. We're gonna have a baby girl, and all of a sudden, for the first time, I felt like my worlds were colliding a bit. It's like my wife and I had spent this whole time in our careers and our time together building this dream life and working towards this dream life of freedom. But then I realized, having a girl and having a baby, I didn't see how we were going to be able to keep doing both, right? How are we going to continue to progress in our careers to earn the kind of money we wanted to so that we could retire early? And all of a sudden it was, I didn't see the path forward. It wasn't clear to me. And then COVID happened. So I didn't have an answer. I just kind of felt this pit in my stomach, like, how's this going to work? How am I going to be the father I want to be present and there with my family, and yet work 40 to 60 hours a week? It wasn't lining up for me all of a sudden. So it felt funny. COVID happened and I got to work from home. I'm there with my daughter. And I guess more and more I started thinking about our goals and our vision, to work our asses off for the next 15, 20 years. And it just wasn't resonating with me anymore. My whole purpose, my main vision, I was no longer excited about it, because it's like the harder I pressed towards that goal of retiring early, the more it meant time away from my family. So it wasn't working. And it was the summer of 2021. So it's been a year pretty much working from home, seeing my daughter quite a bit, at least still working the 9 to 5. But my company started to talk about coming back to work. And that summer is when I essentially told myself, I'm not going back. That I was going to completely change course here and do whatever it took to find more time with my family, to change that goal. And someone had referred me to this concept called Airbnb arbitrage. I had seen it on social media before. Some of the listeners probably have as well. Some of those things that I always just scrolled past, a bunch of young kids flashing their Lambos saying that they have an Airbnb business. I didn't think much of it. But when I listened to this podcast, someone had done it successfully here where I lived, and I listened to it and it just made sense. And now, of course, with this mindset of wanting to leave the corporate job, I pretty much listened to that podcast and knew by the end of it, this is what I'm going to do. And I listened to it again. And then I went to work every morning and evening, kind of figuring out how I would build this business. And once I was confident that I could do it, my wife and I both submitted our resignations, and we quit before we even started the business. And here we are 2.5 years later. We'll never look back.
Congratulations, man. Congratulations. I mean, not a lot of people really get that call and answer it, the call of freedom and the call of wanting to be, do, and have that which you want. Now, Charles, I think it will be remiss if we continue this episode without actually naming and identifying your wife, because she's a really big part of this story. You know what I mean? So we can't. I think we need to pass her that respect. What's your wife's name?
Yeah, the love of my life, Tiffany.
All right, great stuff. So you obviously have had breakfast at Tiffany's, and that's pretty much how you got robbed in, 10 years in the whole corporate world, and it's now a happy story, isn't it?
It's unbelievable where we are today and how it happened. Being grateful is an understatement. We truly can't believe the life we're living today, and that we get to have this type of freedom today with our family. Everything we've been working towards and why we took the risk was for this freedom, this life that we're living today. And we're here and we're living it. And it's hard to even articulate what it feels like to live life on our terms today and have the whole future in front of us with our family. World's our oyster. We can work from everywhere. And we can do whatever we like. We can build whatever business we want. We can help people. We can spend more time on our health and our kids. I just beyond grateful. That's just the word that comes to mind. I can't believe it.
Fantastic. I mean, in life, we're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. And obviously, for you to live the best life that you have or can, you need to learn how to obviously do that. But I just really want to find out a little bit about maybe a bit of your background. Obviously, growing up, you would have been around maybe a family sort of setup or people around you that would have inspired you to want to land a job in investments, or was that just because it was something that was available at that time?
Yeah, great question. I'd say I what I was chasing early on was security more than anything else. My both my parents were. I don't come from money is an understatement. My parents did not manage money well. It was a major source of stress for them and the household, and I felt it even as a kid growing up. And ultimately, was the reason they divorced. And so money was always something that I knew I wanted, and not for anything material, truly just for the security of family. Family was crazy important to me. I always knew I wanted to be a dad. I wanted to have a family and have a close bond. And I just knew that money could get in the way of that. And I didn't want to let that happen. And so I knew that creating wealth um, meant so much more than anything to do with material. It was even that mental freedom as a starting place of knowing that you are secure and safe and you can provide for your family. I wanted that. So that's where it started, going into the world of finance and wealth creation. And then it kind of grew from there. I realized what wealth could really do in creating freedom beyond just the mental freedom. And so we went to work building that wealth year after year, living beneath our means and investing.
Absolutely. And congratulations. I mean, obviously, not a lot of people will come from that and see that they too can be doing have, a better life than what they have been around, because fish really, at the end of the day, don't see the water that they swim in. And neither do people see the air that they breathe. So
Mm.
good on you for really stepping up and doing something for yourself. But in your job in the investments there, you obviously were working with wealthy accounts and pretty much seeing what other people are doing, and that would have obviously inspired you to want more or made you see what was possible. But my question here is, what do rich people eat?
Yeah, Wagyu beef, I think, is it seems to be a go-to. Uh, but do you know what, Prosper? It was almost the opposite. So working that corporate job, and so I didn't have a book of clients, and so our firm did. Our firm had a lot of financial advisors. They all had clients, individuals. I worked at the corporate head office from more of a strategic financial perspective. And so really kind of creating up our firm's strategy on how we would help people create wealth. But in that field, what I saw over time was a lot of people committing their whole lives to making money. And that's where it just started to not make sense for me. So if I'm being fully honest, I was making quite a bit of money before I left, but I was about to start making a lot of money. Firm as a private firm is not public. It's the largest partnership firm in North America, Edward Jones, and I was on track to be a general partner there, making lots and lots of money. But of course, that came with that kind of responsibility. And I just knew more and more when I had my daughter there in front of me at home that that's not what the money was ever for. The money was to create freedom. And that was almost the opposite. It's like they're going to pay me to take away my freedom. And that's how it felt. It was like they were going to write me a fat check that I couldn't say no to. And so I kind of left. I left before that happened. I said, you know what? I need to take this opportunity, give this thing a shot, see if I can build a dream life today with my wife. And that's what we did.
Fantastic. Now, Charles, I mean, as a man, you know, when marriage happens, or when a kid happens, or the threat of your job happens, usually a lot of people will hold on and hang on to what they have. But you literally saw an escape, from that. So many people would have wanted to hang on to whatever that job was promising, even though, like you said, they were literally just handing over a paycheck in exchange for your own freedom. How did maybe, because a lot of people have kids and they actually
Yeah,
want to do more for their kids by holding on to their jobs, but this
sure,
what
sure.
actually accelerated your decision to pursue your new path. Maybe walk us through that sort of thought process.
Yeah, well, I would say I was like everyone else for so long. That was the purpose of the job, right? It's, I have a mortgage, a wife, a 1-year-old girl. We want to have a second one. We do now. So now we have that 1-year-old girl is 4, and we have a 2-year-old boy as well. Um, but you're right. I was working on building that career for my family, and yet we realize that it ends up being the opposite too often, right? That I think sometimes I've heard the stats. This won't be exact, but it's like in the first 18 years of your child's life, that's where you spend 90% of your entire time with your kids is in those first 18 years. So after those first 18 years, you only have 10% left. And so if you're going to work your ass off to quote unquote provide for your family during those first 18 years, you aren't there for your family. And unless they're going to go hungry, then to me, what I was had to tell myself is that was an excuse. If I was going to continue down this path of this career of providing for my family and working 50 to 60 hours while they live in my house, then I'm lying to myself if I'm saying I'm doing it for my family. They don't need more money. They don't need more money. It would have been for me. And so quitting was the risk, of course, leaving that security. It was a risk that I was willing to take to spend more time with my family. And I thought, hey, you know what? Even if after 3 years we can't do it, we aren't successful, if we have to get jobs again, those 3 years, I'll at least had that time, that freedom with my family, and also know that I gave it everything I got.
Absolutely. So obviously when your daughter turns 18, we're going to just cut this little bit off your video and send it to her as a present and say, hey, this is what dad sacrificed for you and things of that nature. It's such a beautiful thing for you to be selfless in light of the ones that you absolutely love. So, I mean, obviously, now that you were at home, you started experiencing all the free time while you were working at home. You started listening to podcasts, and this is why we're creating this type of content for people that are willing to learn, so they too can be do and have a happier existence. So that podcast shifted things for you a little bit, as you mentioned.
Oh, it changed my life, I think. I don't know that I would have found it otherwise. And so I listened to that podcast, and it was the reason why I quit my job, and gave this business a shot, truly.
Absolutely. And from
And
there,
then,
you got.
funny enough, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you up, but full circle story. That same podcast that I listened to, I ended up being featured on twice to share our pretty crazy story of how quickly we built our own arbitrage. I was able to get on there and say, "Hey, this is the podcast that caused me to quit, and now I'm on it, sharing my own success story." It was pretty cool.
Oh my God. Well, look at that. I mean, obviously from being a consumer of the content to now becoming part of the creation process, it's just a beautiful thing to watch. Now, you've been throwing around this word, Airbnb arbitrage. I mean, for those at the back of the room that might not have an idea of what that actually means, could you maybe give us a high level of what sort of animal that is?
Yes, yeah, it is quite simple, really. The concept is that you are renting or leasing these properties from a real estate investor or a landlord. So call it, I'm actually a tenant. I'll go to a landlord who has a property up for a 1 year or 2 year lease, just a residential property, and I will have a conversation with that landlord to explain that I will be your tenant. I'll pay that monthly rent and utilities that you're looking for. And what I'm going to do is sublet that property on Airbnb for a profit. And that's really how the business model works. Some people call it a rent to rent business model. So I'm renting the property as a vacant, empty property. Then what I do is furnish it. So I'm investing in furniture and decor. I set it up ready to take on Airbnb guests. I put it on Airbnb and run it as an Airbnb. And the profit margin is simply the revenue that comes in as an Airbnb property that comes to us. And our overhead cost is going to the landlord in terms of rent and utilities.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, it is something that seemingly sounds easy, but obviously, there's a lot of moving parts in that whole, sort of maybe setup. And you've built this from scratch, and it's not a small feat. Maybe, first of all, what are maybe some of the challenges that you would have faced, and how did you navigate them? Because there's a lot of learning that needs to be happening, along the journey.
Yeah, definitely a lot of learning. I would say the first is understanding how to turn this into a proper business with a value proposition. And so, what I had heard in doing my research before we started our business is lots of people had tried this, right? They'd heard the concept, and then they're making these calls to landlords, and I kept hearing the word. They're trying to convince the landlord to allow them to sublet. And so, and I knew right away with my business background that it wasn't the right approach, and that's why they're all getting no's, right? Of course, that sounds terrible to a landlord. You're trying to convince me to run my property as an Airbnb. That doesn't sound good. Um, but what I realized was that if the business was built properly, and it was built to actually serve the real estate investor as your client, that there was a significant value to bring to landlords. So I was a real estate investor myself. I've owned some properties, and the worst part about being a real estate investor or landlord is having to deal with the tenants and the property management, the risks, the headaches that come with it. It's the work that you have to do to create the wealth, right? With my business, I'm calling a real estate investor and I'm solving those problems. That's what I'm calling them to do. And so I'm calling them to convince me to sublet. I'm calling to say, hi, Mr. or Mrs. Landlord, I built a business that serves real estate investors, and here's what I do. And it's a short pitch to explain that I'm going to lease your property and pay your rent, and then I'm going to sublet as a short-term rental. And I just stop there. That's it. I just explain it. And then I let them ask questions. And through asking those questions, letting them ask those questions, I hear their genuine concerns, objections, hesitations. And so I just spent call after call learning why real estate investors wouldn't like the idea and answering those, and then essentially building an inventory of questions, objections, and then building a business that actually solved those problems. And that's what we did. And so ultimately, when we were making these calls and I was allowing them to ask those questions, the answers were obvious to them. And they started to realize this actually seems almost too good to be true. And then so the next step was simply meeting them, seeing me face to face, showing them my properties, discussing our disciplined processes as a business. And the yeses came fast after we had our value proposition clear. We launched 30 listings in the first 6 months.
No, congratulations, man. I mean, I can only imagine, because the whole point of buying an investment property is to get somebody to lease it. And if you've got a guaranteed tenant who's also going to be looking after it, because they're also trying to make money out of that, it is definitely a no-brainer. And with that being said, you've actually grown your business to 50 from the 30 that you just mentioned. So this is across Canada and the US in just now 2.5 years. First of all, what sort of strategies or systems are you using to make sure you are on top of every property and every listing, and that it is fully booked and it's profitable?
Yeah, and nowadays with the software available, that that's actually not too difficult to achieve, I would say. That through various property management softwares and then training teams. So in short, we have virtual assistants as our primary staff. So we have 5 full-time staff. I think we'll be adding a 6th full-time virtual assistants. They're all from the Philippines. And they've been with us almost since the beginning. We hired them in that first year, and now they're trained up to run the day to day themselves. And now, of course, I had some experience in the corporate world, leading teams and building strategies and processes and systems. And so I knew I was capable of doing exactly that. And so that was the grind. That was the hardest part of building the business. It wasn't actually acquiring the properties. That started to come pretty easily. It was understanding what needs to be done every single day to manage all these properties, from making sure they're priced properly, that they're getting booked, that we're serving these guests really well, they're getting great customer service, that we're managing the cleans. So it sounds like a ton, but when you actually break it down to one property, what needs to get done every single day into processes, step by step, and what software to use, now it's actually quite easy. And you kind of give that, here's the step by step process to a virtual assistant for a few properties. You'd be surprised how quickly it just starts rocking and rolling. And then so we really, the first 2.5 years, first year and a half was growth, but then the systems and processes were a mess. Our business was chaos. And then we have optimized it and automated it over the last year or so. And now it really doesn't require much time from Tiffany or myself at all. And so our 50 listings are just being run day to day, and it doesn't require any of our time.
Absolutely. And congratulations. I mean, obviously, this is something that once you're in it, like you say, there's processes to this, because your actual product is just making sure that, there's available space. You literally sell space. You are not owning the property and the platforms that people are booking from is somebody else's issue. All you're just doing is just making sure you are being the best host they can be, and increasing your what do you call it, the appeal that you have on the platform in and of
That's right.
itself. Is there maybe, I mean, obviously this was getting into more of your strategy and what it is that you then teach people, but on a surface level, the selection of property should also come into this, because you don't want to just pick any other property which is not obviously going to be rentable. You want to be in spaces and places where travelers are frequenting, and people have like a long list or a waiting list, just so that they can have the opportunity to experience that sort of particular place.
That's it. And that's the skill set that comes over time. Or if you have a mentor or coach in the industry who can allow you to skip a lot of the steps and figuring all that out. But that's kind of the idea, that you can get started with one property without being an expert on how to optimize the revenue of that property. The trick is just getting started. And then after that, is spending the time to learn how to set yourself apart from the competition. But I say that's one of the key benefits of this industry and this business model, is that the competition, they're, I would say they're mostly amateurs. To be fair, that if you think of most Airbnbs, they're being run by someone who has a full-time job and who's just running their one Airbnb by themselves where they can, as best as they can. Unfortunately, they're competing with people like me who have teams dedicated full time to figure out how can we outperform every other property in the area. And so it becomes, for people like us who are building this business full time, the competition, it's not too difficult for us to outperform.
Absolutely. Well, I can only imagine, man, because at the end of the day, with what you're doing and what you're creating and who you're becoming, you're learning as you're going, and all of those things are happening. I can only imagine somebody who's just maybe renting out a room within their own property. They cannot be, as competitive as, like you said, you've
Yeah.
got a host of team softwares and VAs that are working 24/7 to just make sure that that room, that house is sort of well looked after. Now, like you said earlier on, you've reached full circle. I mean, when it started, you listened to a podcast, and now you are being invited to this podcast for you to have a chat about what's going on. And it's quite clear that you've also achieved one of your main goals for actually getting into this, which is freedom. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have time to even have a chat with me. You'd be busy fixing toilets and whatever is
Yeah.
happening at Airbnbs right there. Now, how has this sort of achieving this freedom and at a very young age, because I don't think you're any older than what I'm thinking right now. How has it impacted your life and obviously your family's daily routine? Like you said, now it's all hands off, and you've got the VAs doing all the work for you behind the scenes.
That is the best question, and it's the hardest question to answer because I can't even articulate the positive impact that this has had on our lives. And we had a great life before that we were grateful for. We had great jobs. We have my wife and I have an incredible bond. We had an incredible girl. Now we have a boy. Life was good already. But having freedom like this, I mean, the quality time that we spend together and with our kids, like we see the impact it has on them. They are special. And I know we're biased, but the love that they have, I mean, that's all we're not in a rush for anything. And you think about this modern day, right? The 9 to 5, you can be the best parent you can be. But if you're trying to do it all, the 9 to 5, the commute, the making the dinners, exercising, eating healthy, you're doing all the things you're trying, you only have so much time to be present with your kids. And that's you doing your best. And that's just reality. And our reality, as lucky as we are, we have all the time in the world with them. And I can't describe what that feels like. So to get a sense of our day, uh, I work out a lot, and so we get full 8, 9 hours sleep because we want our minds working right and we want our bodies working right. So we get a full night's sleep. We sleep in a bit. We get our kids ready together in the morning. We take our time. We take them to school. My wife and I go for a big walk after that. We come back. We have our workout. We talk a little business, maybe talk about life. We start our work around late morning sometime, spend a few hours. Really, leadership development is our main focus with the actual business. It's actually working with our virtual assistants, so we're not in there day to day. We're just making sure that our company, the people who work with us, love working with us and that they're excited to grow with us. And that's really now our main jobs as business owners, is making sure that our virtual assistants want to be here for the long haul and want to take on more and more responsibility. And so we only really work the middle few hours of the day, and our focus beyond leadership development is where do we want to go from here, and that's what ultimately had us realizing that beyond just growing the size of our Airbnb operations, we wanted to spend more time trying to help others follow in our footsteps in creating freedom. And so that's when we built the second company, which is our coaching and mentorship program, where we help others build their own furnished rental company and truly follow in our footsteps.
Fantastic. Tell us more about this coaching academy and how does it sort of help aspiring entrepreneurs make that retirement a little bit closer, like you guys have achieved for yourselves?
Yeah, well, that's it. And so to be clear, to get into this business or this industry, you don't have to be ready just to quit your job tomorrow like we did. That move doesn't make sense for most people, I would say. But the industry has limited barriers to entry. As I mentioned, the competition is low. And so if you dedicate some time to this, it wouldn't take long before you can acquire multiple listings. And as we mentioned, the upfront capital is insignificant. We're not talking about buying a property and coming up with those funds. We're talking about you can rent a 1 bedroom property, fill it with furniture. You can get that furniture used if you find the right stuff. You get your first property with a few $1,000s, and all of a sudden you have one. And you'd be surprised. It doesn't take that long. We're doing this on the side. It won't take too much of your time, and then all of a sudden you see the vision. So I'd say anyone can do this. There's my first message, that anyone, if you want this, you can start this as a side hustle and you can just get started and watch it happen. And so our program is essentially here to create a community of people all trying to do the same thing. So right now, we haven't marketed it much. This is one of the first times I'm talking about it, actually. So we launched the program officially maybe a couple months ago. We have 15 people in it who just reached out over the last couple of years, and I told them, hey, we finally have this program, and we just share everything under the hood, everything. How to create your corporation the right way, how to get funding if you want or need it, how to get landlords to say yes, how to furnish it with the right ROI in your area, how to optimize revenue, how to find virtual assistants, how to train those virtual assistants. And we give everything our company's built, all of our proprietary resources, operations. We don't hold back a single thing. If it can help you grow your business, we share it. So the program includes a lot of stuff. The community itself, where you can ask questions, chat with other people, with myself as well. We hold multiple masterclass sessions every week to go deep dive into some of the more complex topics. And there's an actual curriculum of me walking through the content live on a video. So it comes with a lot, but we built this program with the idea of helping others create that freedom. And whether that takes 1 year, 5 or 10, we just know that there is an opportunity here, and we have the experience and the proof of concept that it works. We're real people. This happened. It's real. It's as real as it gets. So that's what this is all about: is seeing if we can help a few other people escape their 9 to 5 and enjoy this kind of freedom that we have today.
Charles, you know, every time you're talking, I'm really sensing this depth in happiness that is only found when somebody has found their thing. And not a lot of people can be able to dig deep and still find it within them, and obviously send the elevator down like you are doing, because so many people are hurting out there. You know, if you look at what you
Yeah.
guys did in 2020, you maintained and kept your job while other people were being told that
Mm,
what they're doing is non-essential. You know what I mean? Can you imagine still going back
mm,
to a job that nobody needed for 2.5 years? And that's what other people are experiencing and going through. And more now that you're actually not holding your cards to yourself, but you're now teaching others. This is an opportunity for people to really want to learn from those that have gone on the path. And looking at your smile, you haven't been burnt and it has worked for you. And I kind of feel like what you're giving has so much depth, in as much as it actually reminded me of something. Indulge me here for a little bit, Charles, because you took me back while you were talking. When I was growing up, you know, we have what's called you know, somewhat of an initiation process where you know, the village elders call you in and then tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, it's your turn to lead now. Now, this doesn't happen in the first world, where, like you were saying, people just go to high school, meet their love, you know, get a job, get kids, retire, and maybe die with some disease that's, you know, that they have to pay money to get out of,
mm.
and eventually not even enjoy any of the freedom and the time that you're doing. And what I think you're offering here is somewhat of a pattern break, where you're literally telling people that there is a way, this is possible. You too can be, do, and have a business that's profitable and enjoyable. Somewhat of an initiation. I don't know. You give me a comment on that, please.
Oh, I mean, everything you're saying, it just resonates so much. I assumed, even myself, as someone who from a young age was focused on wealth creation and chasing freedom, chasing retirement, I even still felt that that was the only path, right? That I didn't, I had to do what everyone else had to do. We had to work 9 to 5. We had to, commute or do what we were told to do. Um, and I guess this just opened my whole world up to say you can take control of your life. You can take back control of your life. And whether it's this business model or another, at the end of the day, uh, it's out there for you, and you really just need the courage to start and the discipline to just keep going, and it will happen. And even in this industry, like, of course, we had the money to launch a lot of properties quickly. We grew fast. That was our story. But the reality is there's a whole lot of other people out there who are getting one listing at a time and growing slowly and changing their lives month after month, year after year, retiring early. The possibility in this industry is endless. It was $100 billion industry. The short-term rental industry was $100 billion this year. It's supposed to be a $300 billion industry in 10 years. When you think about it, it makes perfect sense, right? That was what we're talking about. People no longer want to live in one box their whole life with a mortgage and die in that same place. They want to experience the world, and corporations are more and more, at least, allowing people to work from anywhere. And so this change in lifestyle of wanting to move around and live in other areas opens it up. Furnished rentals are just more and more common, and we're just in the infancy. And you can start with anything. Again, you don't have to have a lot of money to get started. If you live on rent a room in your house, find a friend or relative who's willing to let you manage their Airbnb in their basement for free. Just do what it takes to get that first listing, and we can help you do it. But I'm telling you, once you get one or two listings, you will all of a sudden, it'll all make sense that you can continue to grow your business, and you'll see the path to freedom. And it's right there for you. And you no longer have to live in retirement and watch your funds draw down and hope that you'll have enough. No, you'll be living in retirement with a business that's making you money. And you'll be in full control of your life. And so it it's crazy. Go for it. Take the risks on yourself. Go for it. Whether it's this or something else. That is my message. Just don't assume that you just have to repeat the same day for the next 30 years. You don't have to. Pick something. Get after it. Start creating your freedom right now, and just take baby steps every day. And it just starts with learning, and just keep going.
Now, Charles, for those that are uninitiated, what would be the first step they should do, or where can they go on the internet to get more information?
Yeah, well, I mean, we are we're intentionally with our academy. We're not looking to grow at a crazy rate. We want to take on the right people who want this for the right reasons and who want to work with us. And so, if you want to reach out directly, I won't send you to a team member. If you can just book a call with me, that's what my time is for right now. Is taking calls from people who want to join our program. And so you can check out our website. I'll share with the notes with you, Prosper. But it's ce-arbitrage.com/join now. And you'll see our website. You'll see a little bit more about arbitrage, how it works. And right on that front page, you can book a call with me and just see if we're the right fit for each other, and to see if we can take that first step to creating some freedom.
Absolutely. I'll definitely put those show notes, those links in the show notes so that people can actually get started with you. Now, Charles, obviously when we started this, you introduced us to some workplace romance, which you thought was not enough in the corridors of whatever corporate environment you were in, and you literally took it all the way back home. What's it like, working with your wife and obviously having to do life together, working together, and planning everything else that comes along with it?
I couldn't ask for anything else. My wife and I, we've always had a really special bond, and I think maybe the one thing that has separated us, or has allowed us to really manifest the life that we want year after year, is how much time we've always spent talking about what we want from life. That's our main conversation, and it's constantly evolving, changing. We're talking about our kids and how we can be better parents. We're talking to each other about how we want to be better or different, or what we're working towards. We spend all of our time talking about our lives together and how we can make it better. And when you spend that much time talking about it and putting it out there and hearing each other, some of it's together, some of it's stuff we're working on independently and supporting each other. But that's what our conversations are made up of 80-90% of the time. And it's always been that way. And that, to me, is almost all that's needed for manifestation. Because if you're talking about it that much, and you're then kind of holding each other accountable to the things that we want out of life, you're just going to start doing every day the things you need to be doing to get there. And that's really what our life has been about. And so working together on building a business, I mean, we feel like we were made for that. We've been manifesting and building our whole lives together. So why can't we build a business together? That this has been just a breeze. It's the easiest thing ever. And now that we're fully in control of it, without a 9 to 5, without bosses telling us where we have to be, now it's just we've taken a skill set we already had, and now we get to put it towards something we're actually passionate about. So yeah, it's been easy, it's been awesome, and it's just brought us closer. And all the hardships and the ups and the downs emotionally, the amount of growth we've had together from just I can't even tell you. It's been a blessing.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, this is beautiful and nice to hear. But I know Tiffany is quite busy, with the kids and running around and things of that nature. Just supporting the whole empire that you guys are building. If this next 5 seconds was the only thing that she watched, what would you want to tell her?
That this is only possible because of her.
Wow, that's deep, brah. And thank you so
I
much.
mean, she's what this family, and I don't think she doesn't take enough credit for it. She thinks she sees me as maybe I'm 80% of the business, but as a team, we live this life together, and I couldn't have done this without her endless support. That I can't even go that far, but holy, yeah, this is only possible because of Tiffany, much more so than me. I had a crazy idea. She had to be the one to figure out how to make this whole family function while we took on this crazy risk together. So, more of the credit goes to her, in my opinion.
Fantastic. And it takes a really strong man to have that sort of gratitude and acknowledgement. Because some people will be like, "Oh, look at me! This is all me. I'm the one that listened to the podcast. I'm the one that did the work." And talking about listening to podcasts, I mean, you've really taken us on a journey, and I really appreciate you for that. And let's just say this would have been the podcast that you listened to at the time when you really wanted to change in your life. What would you have wanted to hear at that particular time, knowing what you know about your life right now?
That it's worth taking that first step. That you don't have to know, you don't have to have all the answers. Honestly, you don't have to have any answer. You just have to know that you want something different for your life, and that it's worth a phone call. And that's it. That it's that take the first step. Steps 2, 3, and 4 come. Well, you'll figure out after that. Take the first step. Learn more. See if this is something that you can explore.
Absolutely. Well, now, Charles, I can't thank you enough. First of all, for going through this journey and for literally having taken the notes in order for you to be the one on the podium telling everybody else how you have done it. I mean, your life story and your experience have so much value for somebody who's probably just stuck, on a dead end, maybe position, maybe art they're playing in their day to day, and it's all groundhog, like you said. You don't have to leave the same day possible. But now that you've taken us all the way here, you've excited us, and we're really, looking forward to knowing a little bit more. What's next? What can we expect from the Cromptons?
Oh, geez. A lot is on this academy right now. It was frankly, to be honest with you, Prosper, this company, the Academy of Helping Other People Create Wealth and Freedom, this was always the end goal. It's on a PowerPoint before I quit my job. It's like I knew that if our Airbnb business was successful, which I knew it was going to be, but I said if we're successful, we will build an academy to help other people do it, because I spent my whole adult life in the wealth industry trying to help people understand the importance of wealth in creating freedom and how to do it. And now I have a platform to do it on a broader scale. So this has always been the goal. So this academy is our full focus. The next number of years, we want to see how many people we can help and how many lives we can change. After that, we'll be looking at a real estate investment trust, I think. A fund essentially to purchase property and have investors join that fund. But then living life, traveling the world, working remotely from all over the place, homeschooling our kids probably because we don't want them to be attached to one school in one city for their whole life. So we're going to live all over the world, working remotely as we can do now, and build some businesses together. And that's what it's all about. And funny enough, Prosper, a couple that just joined our program, we only have 14 or 15, as I mentioned, it just opened, but they're from Australia and they had actually left their corporate jobs without any plan. They're just traveling and living off savings, trying to figure out if they've been doing it for years now. But they joined the program because they want to be able to continue that lifestyle, and they saw arbitrage as a way to do it. And so it really doesn't. You could be coming from any situation, but if the goal is to create more freedom for you and your family, more opportunity, I can't think of a better industry or business model that gives you the opportunity to work towards that goal. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Charles, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I mean, you've really given us a glimpse into a world that maybe for some people are hearing this for the very first time, and for other people are seeing that it is actually possible because representation matters. You know, if you can see others who have been there, done that, and they haven't got any receipts from the burns unit, then you know it is safe. You can go into that route for yourself. And I mean, your story is just a powerful reminder that with courage, commitment, and a little craziness, I mean, yes, obviously you might think this is an investment story, but I feel like it is a love story. First of all, the love of you and Tiffany, the love of your family, and now the love that you're sending down in a basket to those people that really need it. Man, you're doing God's work. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, my man. All right. And
thanks,
the
Prosper.
fact that you can give other people permission to live the life of their own choosing. There are people out there that are hell-bent on working towards making that an impossible endeavor. Good luck.
Let's do it.
You need a bigger security detail than you have right now, my man. All right.
Yeah.
And take
Yes,
good care of
sir.
those kids, all right? Because they have the best role model any person could ever, think of. So I can't wait to see what you're going to be creating. And it's breakfast at Tiffany's at the Cromptons, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're just learning every day. That's what it's about, right? Learn, get better, and learn some more.
Absolutely. Now, for everybody that's watching, I hope you found this as much inspirational as I did. And if anything, there's so much to pick on. Maybe you love the aspect of being a parent, you love the aspect of being an investor, you love the aspect of being a loving husband. I think it's all packed in this particular episode, and there's something for everyone. So if you actually enjoyed this episode, first of all, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. But I actually encourage you to share this with your loved ones, okay? They need to know that, first of all, working together is not impossible, and working together towards things that you absolutely love is the ultimate goal. I mean, this whole yelling at each other is just because we're not aligned, first of all, with ourselves, our jobs, and those, the destinations that we want to take ourselves. So just step back a little bit, share this with your loved one, talk about it over dinner, over breakfast, and see if it's not going to change your life. And as Charlie has so opened up his doors, not to his Airbnbs, but to his actual academy, just have a check and see if you're fit for going at this. Or if it's not that, hey, find out where his Airbnbs are situated and just have an experience of the love that he pours into the work that he's doing. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning into the Online Prosperity Show. And like I said, subscribe to this because you never want to miss out on inspirational guests like Charles that come to the show. Bye for now.
Cheese.